What is going on, everyone? Welcome to the J and J Power Hour. Now, I know what you're thinking. I'm still on this side of the screen, but JPJ is not here this week. He's on vacation. So who else to get other than the host or co-host? I don't know what you guys refer to yourselves as on Between Two Beards, but it's the one of them from Between Two Beards, not JPJ. It's Pluggo, because who better to fill in for JPJ than the person that's with JPJ every week that isn't me? It's Pluggo. What's going on, bud?
We've derailed the show 2 seconds in. Mrs. Pluggo's down here she's like, "Are you recording? Are you on?" And I was like, yeah. Josh is here. I'm here. Am I supposed to go, hello, hello, hello?
That's usually what JPJ does.
Yeah. Yeah, he's on vacation this week, and I've been dying to get on the Power Hour, and I ask him every week, when do I get a spot? He said, "Oh, it'll happen. It took him going on vacation, last minute vacation at that, Josh. He told me Monday night he was going on vacation. Screwed the whole week up for everybody, but that's okay. I'm excited to fill in. Hopefully
do what we can do. You know, we'll just do what we can do. JPJ will be back next week. Well, actually, to be honest, I got a little plan for next week anyway, so stay tuned to my Twitter for that, everybody. Me and JPJ need to talk about that and what we're going to do next week. But the first thing that I have to get off my chest before we start ranting about other stuff is Star Wars, because a month ago on this show, I ranted about you, and you know that I ranted about you. I had a massive rant in me about the fact that you had never watched at that point. You had never watched Star Wars. I'm like, you have kids. You're of that generation. I'm like, what are you doing? Why aren't you watching I don't care if people don't like Star Wars, but they have to at least give it a chance. Then you can have your own opinion and say you can hate it. That's fine. You've watched it. You formed your own opinion. But this little bitch right here has never watched Star Wars up until that point. Now, I know that you've watched a few Star Wars now. I think you've watched...
Your rant put it over the top. I've been fighting it. I am 36 years old, Josh.
Exactly.
I have lived a life where I haven't seen Star Wars for 36 years. And then everybody and their mothers beat me over the head. Watch it. And now we've got a segment going on Thursday nights where I review Star Wars. So I am officially, the first 3 are in the books.
Okay. So you've done the
chronological first 3 are in the books.
Right.
Couldn't understand the first one.
New Hope.
Couldn't understand what was going on there. Actually, fun fact, I started with Return of the Jedi by mistake.
Yeah, I seen that on your Twitter, and I had to go at you. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing?
Everybody's like, what are you doing? My Mrs. Pluggo, she was yelling at me like, what's wrong with you? Just listen to me. Focus in on
Oh, so she's watched it.
She loves it. I actually bought her all of the Star Wars when Blu-ray was cool. I bought her the whole series for Christmas.
That makes it so much worse.
I know, and she's actually a little upset with me that I started watching it because of you fellas started razzing me. She's like, I've been telling you for years to watch it. And I was like, hey.
I should have her on this show, not you.
You should. She's the brains behind all of this, man. Without her, I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay, so for people that haven't watched Between Two Beards or anything like that, you've watched the first 3, the original trilogy. What overall, you don't have to dive into anything too crazy, just an overall generalization of what you think about it. Do you like it? Do you understand why people like it? Do you hate it? You can have your own opinion. I won't get mad.
I'm going to tell you, honestly, I think the first one, I spent the entire time trying to figure out why everybody thinks this is the greatest thing ever.
Right.
So I don't know if that took away from my viewing or not. And then the second one, I really enjoyed Return of the Jedi. No,
Empire Strikes
Back. I really enjoyed that one. There was a lot more action going on. A lot more things were happening. Because I felt like the first one, they took a long time to explain like backstories and this, that, and the other. And I was just kind of like, all right, what's going on here? They're just walking. They're just walking.
No, I get it.
And then I actually didn't like Return of the Jedi because I felt it was boring. I don't know. I just didn't get into it. So don't judge me. I don't know if I'm watching Phantom Menace or not this week, because JPJ is not going to be on Beards. I have a special guest. Stay tuned to our socials for that reveal tomorrow.
Well, by the time this airs, it'll already be out.
Oh, that's right. This airs Thursday morning, so you'll know who our guest is Thursday morning.
Yes, you will. You will. You will.
So
you
I
will.
don't know if we're watching it or not. I know last week I didn't watch strictly on the basis we had a lot going on and we had an awesome guest.
Mm-hmm.
But Alex and JPJ have assured me that once I get into the Phantom Menace, a lot of the questions I had on the first three will start to make sense.
So
because
you're
again,
older than me. You're 10 years older than me. I watched the prequels first. They were the first introduction I had because I was a little kid when the prequels came out. So when Phantom Menace came out, I was 4. So you got to think I'm like my dad and my older brother are both like Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars. They pushed me into this Star Wars world, and then I started watching, the original trilogy after that. But the prequels, a lot of people my age adore the prequels more than they adore the original trilogy. A lot of people older be like, the prequels suck. A lot of the questions that you probably have will get answered in the Phantom Menace, but you're probably, if you didn't like Return of the Jedi though, so you might love the prequels way more. But then
again, like I said, I was like, maybe I'll get it. Maybe it'll make sense. Because like Return of the Jedi was just like, they didn't answer like, how did Luke get his hand back? Like his hand just magically reappears after getting cut off in the last one. He's kissing his sister.
Well, that's
like,
well,
I'm like, what is going on?
It was the 70s though, so just calm down.
So in the 70s, I'm kissing my sister. And
I don't know. I wasn't alive, but
I wasn't either.
So exactly, we both weren't there, so we can't confirm nor deny.
I am holding firm. I am going to keep chugging through, and I even feel like once maybe some of the questions I will enjoy, maybe the first one a little bit more.
Maybe because you'll be like, okay, I understand now. Now I can just watch it for what it is. I feel like because you haven't fallen in love with the original trilogy, if you don't fall in love with the prequels, I think you'll fall in love with the Disney trilogy, because I don't mean this in a nasty way or anything, but it's a much simpler story to follow.
Because that's where I'm at. Like, I'm like, some of this, because like I don't know many movies that I've ever watched that are like, let me start you with the back 3 and then get like,
but remember when it came out, they didn't know they were going to do prequels. So
and I feel like that was part of the problem. Like, that's your blow off. You're not going to do another movie after Return of the Return of the Jedi for another 10 years. That's where you leave me. I'm so confused. I don't know.
Well, Star Wars is like a phenomenon now that will never die, because Disney will just milk that train until it's dry. But because there's series and there's movies and there's all these other things, and you know how Disney is. When Disney get their hand on anything, they're getting every cent out of that story, that franchise, whatever.
They're doing it now with like every movie they're remaking. Buzz Lightyear, exactly. They just came out with another Lightyear. It's like, how do you keep doing this? But
they just keep going,
keep getting them checks. It's man.
Disney. That's Disney for you. Disney. All right, Disney. It's so weird with Disney. You know how we have like Disney Plus and all that kind of stuff now. And any company now, you're just like, who owns this? Who's the juggernaut behind this? You're like, oh, it's Disney. It's just Disney. Disney own everything.
Scoop up everything. Yeah.
They will.
They're going to take over the world. So ultimately, in a synopsis of the Star Wars, 3 movies in, I am indifferent on whether I'm enjoying myself or not. I'm still trying to figure out what the appeal is. But also, like I said on Between Two Beards multiple times, I am not a sci-fi guy. Like, I don't really dive into that realm. So
I'm not either, to be completely honest. Other than Star Wars, I have no time for anything sci-fi.
Noted. But I've got a bunch of, but eventually we're just going to turn this into the Pluggo Needs to Watch franchise, because I haven't seen all the Harry Potters.
Oh, neither have I. No, Star Wars is the only, I don't do movies. I'm not a big movie guy. So people are like, have you watched this movie? I'm like, not a single second. I've never watched Titanic. I've never watched
I've seen
any
Titanic.
of the Jurassic Parks. I think I've watched like 3 Harry Potter movies. I've never watched any of the Lord of the Rings. I've never, I just don't. Movies are a waste
Titanic
of time.
At a very young, I remember being like 12 or 13, and my mom like pops it in, and we're eating pizza. It's like a two VHS tape back in the day. That's how long that movie was. Jesus. And I just remember her going, "Oh, fast!" Like, most of it's not bad, but she was like, "Oh, that part, get out of here!" Like,
obviously I know the. I've seen the bits like with the, I know I understand it, but I've never sat down and watched I don't know. I can sit down and watch 6 hours of a television show and not bat an eye, but if someone's like 2-hour movie, I'm like, oh, I don't want to commit, because you can turn off the TV show after an episode and be like, I'm going to go do something else. If I start watching a movie, I don't care if it's the worst movie in the world, I have to watch it all.
Same. That's part of the reason I haven't seen all these things that people give me shit for. Can I say shit on here?
You can swear as much as you want.
Not my show. This ain't my show.
Go for it. I do not give two single fucks.
and a lot of people give me like shit for it, but basically you have to understand too, I am 36 years old. My oldest child, I have 4 kids. My oldest is 14, almost 14. So a lot of things I can't watch, or I couldn't watch around them. Then on top of it, by the time I get done doing all my dad duties and get through my day, I don't want to sit down and watch a 3-hour movie because then I'm going to stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
I've done it with new shows where I get hooked and I'm like, one more episode. And then it's 2 o'clock and I got to be up at 6 a.m. So I just go to my old standbys every night. I'll watch, you could ask Mrs. Pluggo, I watch How I Met Your Mother almost every night before I fall asleep. Or Friends is in the rotation, Seinfeld, or an old movie that I've already seen that I know, okay, I can fall asleep to.
Yes, I do the same thing. So I don't know if a lot of people don't. Some people do. Have you ever watched Good Mythical Morning on YouTube?
Yes, with Rhett and Link. I watched the... Yeah.
I just put that on and I'm just like, this can just be background noise. Why I like having something not to necessarily fall asleep, but to get myself tired. I can just kind of mindlessly, or if I'm just, scrolling on my phone at the end of the day, I'm just kind of like, cool, someone's here with me. You know what I mean? Like someone's just in the room almost.
Right.
That's how I feel with Rhett and Link because it's so mindless. So I just watch that every night before I go to sleep because it's just familiar. So I don't care if I've seen it, I haven't. It's just like on. So I understand that kind of philosophy with like How I Met Your Mother and stuff like that. I'm like that with The Office as well. The Office and Parks and Rec, I'm just like, I've watched it so many times that I'm like, cool.
I'm going to ask you, I've seen the first season of Office and I stopped, but I keep seeing people go, everybody that stopped after season 1, keep going.
No, yeah, season 1 is like downright pretty bad, but if you just tuck it through to about midway through season 2, you'll be like, oh, I get it. I understand it. Because I did the same thing. I watched Parks and Rec for years before I watched The Office. I'm like, I love Parks and Rec. What a show.
Parks and Rec is good.
My older brother's like, you need to watch The Office. It's the same vein as Parks and Rec. Like you'll understand it. You'll love it. And I'm like, I've tried watching it and it's just not very good. And he's like, no, just please just power through. Like you got to go through a little bit of pain to get to the pleasure. And I'm like, fine. So I was sick and I was like, I've got nothing to watch. And when you just want to lay on the couch when you're sick and you're like, I just want to not think about the fact that I'm sick. I was like, all right, I'll give this a chance. And then midway through season 2, I'm like, oh God, I have to now watch all of this because it's very good. So yeah, just do what everyone says. I know it's like what everybody beats to death with that show, but for anyone that's like watched the first season of The Office and goes, this is not good, just keep going. Just a few more episodes.
But that is the standard Office fan. They give you absolute static for not liking the show. But then you go, I gave season 1 a try. They're like, yeah, that sucked.
Yeah, that's not great. But just keep pushing through. Because they were trying, because remember, The Office US, by the way, is, and it's taking The Office UK, and they only had very few episodes in the first season, so they're kind of trying to mirror that. And then by season 2, they're like, okay, we can start to tweak some things and make some changes and not just go by what The Office UK was doing. So, because remember, the UK and the US is very different comedy. So like sometimes it doesn't translate very well. When we watch stuff from the UK, it's very similar. Australian comedy and UK comedy is very similar, but it's very different to the US comedy. So you have to tweak things to make it work. So just, power through that and you'll be like, okay, I understand why everyone talks about The Office. Like you see GIFs of The Office all over the internet. Like it's just like the most GIF thing in the world. So
I use GIFs of The Office and I haven't seen all of it, but just you can tell with the facials, those GIFs are money.
Oh, they're good.
Them, but
I'm
not busting myself out. I'm using GIFs of things I've never seen.
So you got to watch all the Star Wars. You got to watch The Office.
Office.
Have you watched all the Parks and Rec?
I've watched like the first 4 seasons or so.
Yeah.
I didn't venture too far past it, but it's not that I didn't like it. I love the show. It's just sometimes I don't know what it is. Like I did the same thing with Community. I watched like the first 3 seasons, loved it, and then just kind of fell off of it. And then nothing, no knock on them. And I throw on Parks and Rec from time to time and go, yeah, no, I'll check this out.
Amy Poehler's funny. I get it.
But I'm very set. I just like what I like in terms of TV. And I know
it takes me a long time as well to be like, someone's like, watch this show. I'm like, no,
I'll get on it. Yeah, I'll get on it. I do this all the time. Like with Mrs. Pluggo, she'll be like doing something around the house while I'm trying to watch How I Met Your Mother. I'm like, shut up. I don't know how this one ends. She's like, you watch it every day. She gets really annoyed with me.
How I Met Your Mother is a good show, but it just has a bad last season.
Oh, it's the last season. Well, it's because I think they thought they were going to go one more. And I think they decided to wrap it up I don't know the ins and outs. I'm not a TV connoisseur like that, but I just feel like they were like, oh shit, we got to rush through this thing.
What do you think about How I Met Your Father? Have you watched it yet?
We like it. I watched it with Mrs. Pluggo. We enjoy it so far. It's got enough of the callbacks to How I Met Your Mother to keep you like, oh yeah. But it's got its own new little story. And it's like, the 2022 version of things, so it's very culturally sound, hip. They got all the jokes. It's good. I like it. It got renewed for the second season.
Hilary Duff's in it, isn't she?
Hilary Duff is
she good in it? I've always liked Hilary Duff, but
I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it so far. I think it was only a 10 episode run, so it actually kind of when it ended, I was like, oh crap, like, is there more? And they got renewed for a second full 22 episode season. So I'll be interested to see what they do after that. But yeah, so far so good.
Cool. I've always liked Hilary Duff. She's a very unproblematic person, which is crazy that she was a child actor and didn't have any, any problems. You look at all of those from that era and they all have something, rightfully so to a lot of, she was at the same time as like Lindsay Lohan and Amanda Bynes and even Britney Spears to a certain degree. And we've all seen how their kind of lives have gone. They've all had their own issues. But you've never heard about Hilary Duff having anything really crazy going on. She's just kind of like, she's just there. She's just doing her thing.
To be fair to Britney, it sounded like there was some other people meddling in her life that caused some of those problems. But yeah, Hilary Duff has stayed relatively squeaky clean. I'm sure if we did some digging, we'd find, she got drunk at a bar once. But it's like, that's nothing. It's innocent Hilary Duff. Yeah, right.
You know when like you see like
karaoke.
I know when you see all those like things on like TMZ and stuff, and it's like this person was caught smoking weed. I'm like, yeah, they're 20.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like that's what people do when they're young is they try different things. It's like they're just living.
I mean, I'm right on that era of like social media hadn't quite taken off yet. It was still a thing when I was in my 20s. But it wasn't what it is today.
Yeah.
And I always say, like, I'm glad that there wasn't, TikTok for when I was in my bar days. God. You get drunk and you do crazy things and it happens and it's nothing crazy and like, criminal, but just I can imagine.
It's called growing up. Like you just do that shit.
Like, I'm a firm believer on everybody matures and grows up and things that you did. I'm not going to hold against you at 20 that maybe 30, you're 30, 40 now. You're 20. Like you didn't know, like
you're just trying to navigate life. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. It's all weird.
And I'm showing my age, but when I was 20, it was just different time. Like, and I don't want to use that as an excuse and say that people should get. It just was like
But even when I was 20, that was 6-7 years ago, and it's different now.
Yeah, like it's just But I mean, 20-year-old John, the stories that if I could go back, everybody says like if I could go back, I would kick his ass. No, I would pat myself on the back and say, you know what, you made it, man. You worked hard.
Just keep going.
This isn't. Just keep going. It'll get like The Office. Just keep going,
just keep
man.
Powering through.
And I tell people, like, I didn't meet my wife until I was 30. I didn't buy my first home until I was 32. No, actually, I'm sorry, 33.
Exactly.
Like, and I didn't find this passion of doing podcasting and all this until a few years ago. Like, you just your 20s, you're supposed to be discovering and finding out what you like, and you're gonna have some setbacks, but just keep pushing. From the old Grandpa Pluggo here.
Oh God, yeah, you're not grandpa status. Don't sell yourself short just yet.
I mean, I had some silver ear hairs the other day. I was like, what the hell is this?
I get gray down here. I don't have much.
I'm not JPJ quite yet, but we're getting there.
The silver fox, JPJ. Let's go.
Right.
That little shit. Yeah, screw you, JPJ, for not being here this week. Yeah.
I told you guys early. No, you didn't. No,
he never even claimed to me that he told me early. He just said I straight up forgot. So I got that.
In my defense, though, I did tell him, I was like, dude, the couple weeks that I've had in terms of life, like, you might have told me, and I just assumed that it was
no, don't even. Let's just blame him.
Hey, I got a safe face. He's the co-host of the flagship over there. I Love Wrestling, man. I got it. Without him, I don't know what to do with myself.
Speaking of not knowing what to do with yourself, let's talk about Vince McMahon. That's been a whole thing this last. Now we're recording this like at the same time as NXT is airing. So by the time this actually comes out into the world, we'll probably know like 600 other things going on. But
and he might have came out on NXT and did a little song and dance.
Who fucking knows with this guy? That's a whole nother freaking podcast, that thing. But last week, I didn't ever think I would see this day. I know it's only, it doesn't really mean much right now, but we're living right now in a world where Vince McMahon is not the chairman of WWE. It's not the CEO of WWE. Whether you want to believe what that actually means or not.
Right.
Even if it's just simply by title, that man is not the head honcho right now. Stephanie McMahon is. Now, people are going to get on me for this, and they can, and I'll own it. I've always liked Stephanie. I've never had a problem with Stephanie. I think Stephanie is the right fit for somebody to take over that company, even if it's just purely meaning that it's still McMahon, because I think it would be weird if WWE wasn't owned by McMahon in some way. I'm not saying Vince, but like that name being tied to that. And Stephanie seems to have, the general consensus seems to be as well, that Stephanie has a better understanding of the talent. They like her more. She seems to be a little bit more, maybe, I don't even know the word, maybe approachable's the word of like.
I would agree with that.
Stephanie seems to be a little bit more connected with talent, I think. Anyway, I don't know shit. I'm not there, but it is, I never, because of everything going on with WWE in the last few years, I'm like, I don't know if Stephanie, if Vince was to, knock on wood, was to pass or to step down, I didn't know if Stephanie was going to be the one to take over, especially in these last few months with Stephanie being on a leave of absence, Triple H being not well, and then Nick Khan being kind of in the situation. I was like, is Nick Khan going to be the one to kind of step in and take over? But it seems, at least in title right now, Vince still believes that Stephanie would be the one to take over the company if something was to happen to him. Would this kind of interim stuff confirm that to you, that Stephanie will be the one to kind of take the reins if need be?
I'm with you. I hope so, because I like Stephanie too. And again, you never hear any negative reports on Stephanie. And I feel like she was the driving force for that women's division with all the first back in the day, and she was pushing real hard for it. So I'd like to see it. I don't know if they're doing this like a let's test it out type thing. I know Shane's kind of out of the picture, and I don't think he was.
Shane's gone.
Yeah, he's whatever he did at the Royal Rumble weekend, I think sealed his fate. I don't know if Triple H was ever the, person to pencil in. I think it makes sense that it's Stephanie. She's been there since she was her whole life, essentially. But I mean, on-screen character for the last 20 plus years. God, so yeah, in her teenage years. So for me, I like the idea. And if she's more approachable and she's more willing to listen to talent and she's willing to try things, it's funny because you tweeted out earlier this week that your wrestling excitement has been at a low, and for WWE standards, mine has also been kind of dwindling. But isn't it? I'm back. I want to see what Stephanie's going to do, at least in the short term, if she's going to do anything at all. I mean, of course, there's the naysayers that are like, "Oh, Vince is still in her ear." I'm sure he is.
He probably is. I don't think she can make too many big decisions at the moment.
Yeah. We've seen this week he's come out and just completely shit all over the product for 2 straight episodes. But I'm excited to see what Stephanie can do in the long term. Isn't that going to be a weird day, though, in wrestling world when Vince ultimately, passes? There's going to be an entire section of people celebrating that. Like,
I don't want the man to die.
Right.
You know,
Nobody
everyone
wants,
dies.
but
Everyone
yeah,
dies. But
I'm saying, like, when it ultimately eventually happens, because it happens to all of us, like, how is that? That's going to be a weird vibe.
It will be a weird vibe. It is. I know this is not breaking news at all, but the way Vince has acted on the last couple of episodes, I know you can probably just pin it down to, oh, he's in character, he's doing like the short. Okay, whatever you want to say. But that man has lost his marbles. He's insane.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that. That man is running what once was $1 billion company. And you hear all these things about, and you know, believe what you want to believe, don't believe what you don't. It's not a big deal. But you hear all these things about talent interacting with Vince or people interacting with Vince and the way he runs this company and stuff like that. And it's like he's so far gone that there's no reeling him back to see what's right and wrong anymore. He's just going. And this man should not be on television when there's 5 law firms that we know of that are investigating the whole company purely out of the spiral of what has happened with the misconduct and all of this stuff that's happening that we're not even going to touch because
and unfortunately there is nobody that is going to stand up to Vince and say that is a terrible idea what you did on Friday. It's a terrible idea what you did. Outside of this lawsuit aside, I got to imagine he's cost that company millions of dollars just on bad decisions that he ultimately thought were good, because nobody in the company is saying like, all right, Vince, like, and say what you will, he's a polarizing figure. He did a lot for the sport. I'm not discrediting, but like at some point you just got to say like, all right, like this isn't, this isn't the 80s, this isn't the 90s, like what you're trying to do here is not working. But there is nobody in that company because it is WWE is Vince McMahon. It is like you said, it's a McMahon property. It's going to be owned by them until they decide to sell it. He has lost it. And like just coming out, just being completely tone deaf on Friday and promoting that you're coming out after the allegations. And all you said was, welcome to SmackDown.
Yeah.
And then now forever together, like, haha, look at me. I'm never going to go anywhere.
It was just him just is stroking his ego and just saying like, I'm untouchable. That's what he was trying to say. Yeah. He is going to get, there is going to be, because of the policies that his company has created, sexual misconduct and offering money in exchange for that. He has broken his own WWE law that he or his company created.
That he wrote. Yeah.
So
and the thing with the money is like, it's
insane.
not even that. It's like, and I talked about this on Thursday and I said, like, whatever happened, and you're offering hush money to an employee, like, out of your pocket, like that's on you, but you're using, it's a publicly traded company, so essentially you're using stockholder money to pay somebody, doubling salaries. It's just a hot mess. And again, he wrote these bylaws, and sure, he has voting power, but if he has any sanity left, like just step, you had a good run, you're 78 years old, like
go and enjoy your life. Just
go in. Yeah, just go enjoy it. Leave it to Stephanie to let her run it. Like you don't need to worry about what's happening on Raw, because we're at the point where we don't want to see you out there anyway. It's been years and years and years of like, ultimately, and you hear all the stories. It ends at Vince. I go to Vince's office and I give him 2 hours of ideas, and he shoots every single one of them down and just sends me home.
Yeah, it is weird. Before we were recording today, I woke up and I was like, oh, I'll just, chuck something on YouTube. And I watched the Matt Hardy podcast, whatever it's called. What is it called? The Extreme Life of Matt Hardy. Yeah. And I watched the episode on Bray Wyatt and Woken Matt Hardy. And just the way that Matt, not in like a shit-talking way, he just broke down how Vince is. He said when he went and, this is just an example, I'm sure there's a plethora of the times this has happened, but
you could do an entire series on Vince McMahon.
Matt said he had to go into Vince's office and explain what broken Matt Hardy was, and blah blah blah. He did, and Vince just kept harping on one thing. He said, Matt said, I want to do promos in all of space and time, the whole broken shtick. And he said, I want to do stuff that isn't in the ring. I want to do stuff that isn't backstage. I want to be able to build on this character. And he said, and Vince kept going, so in a planetarium, like in a like a space museum, basically, for anyone that doesn't know what that is. And Matt's like, sure. And then Vince kept asking, he goes, so you want to do promos in a planetarium? And he's like, And then Vince kept he said that sentence 6 times in the matter of about 5 minutes. Of like that's what he was harping on. And like Vince gets so like Vince doesn't I am under the impression that if Vince doesn't like something, it won't enter his television. No matter if he understands what the appeal is or not, if Vince personally does not like it, it's not happening.
Which is the wrong attitude to have for a 78-year-old man to know what, 20-something women's wrestlers, what hits when we talked about this, we've talked about this before. I don't watch NXT with any sort of regularity because I don't think it's written for a 36-year-old man who has 4 kids. So I don't understand some of the lingo, some of the jive, and I would never sit there and try to explain to a 20-something like life. You know what I mean? Because they
but
have
also NXT is written for a peanut brain, so I don't understand how anyone can watch that and just go, "Wow, that's stimulating."
Right, but I'm not gonna be like he's 78, and then you got Bruce and you got Johnny Ace, you got all these old, and before Bruce and Johnny Ace, it was like Pat Patterson and Briscoe, and they had a better mind for the business, but they were still up there in age. And you're asking the 70-year-old man to go, yeah, that's hip. That's what's right. Like he's essentially going, I don't like it, take it off my TV, and it's like, but we would like that.
It's so weird that Vince is in the mindset of like, again, this is what I think.
It's for an audience of one.
It's for him. He is making his show. You can tell just with the experience that we've had watching WWE for as long as we have, you can exactly tell when something comes on the screen, you go, this is for Vince. This isn't for anyone. We know what his likes are. We understand what Vince likes in a and I'm not saying that every time that means it's bad, because some of the stuff is fun and some of the stuff is funny, because some of the really silly stuff you can tell that's Vince, and I love that. But some of you're like, this is just got Vince McMahon written all over it. Like, I'm sure this is probably the only part of WWE that I've really been, other than like what I really love, but like the only story that I'm really following properly is the Ezekiel Elias Kevin Owens thing. But that's got Vince written all over it.
And we initially thought it was going to tank when Ezekiel debuted, and they've made it work.
It's been because it's been so silly.
Yeah, and it's been and Kevin Owens kills it,
and
Chad Gables, Zeke has been killing it. Yeah. Elias has killed it. We'll just
that was funny this week, wasn't it? How they had the Kevin Owens is just going absolutely bonkers. He's just going insane. And again, sometimes it's not the actual material, it's not the actual context of the story, it's who's in it. And these people Kevin Owens could make literally anything work. So that's, it's not. But even Zeke in that is doing Elias is, they're 2 different people. Don't forget everybody.
Yeah. Whoa. Yeah, they're.
I don't want to.
I saw 2 people on last night. Well, I'm sorry, on Monday night because we're recording. I gotta get used to that.
Yeah, you're not used to doing I usually go live. Yeah, exactly.
Everything I do is usually live.
But they are 2 different people. We've seen them in the same room.
Yeah, I saw them together. I don't know what Kevin Owens is talking about. But yeah, even that story is so off the wall bonkers. It's such a Vince thing to do, but it is working. Yeah. So not everything the man does sucks. But when you have a 3-hour show and the only thing we're talking about is that 10-minute segment of 3 hours, that's a problem, because the rest of it is just like, I could catch it later.
It's outside of I've said this many times, and I'm not outside of, if it wasn't for the women being able to kill it on the weekly basis that they are in WWE, I would not watch that show. I'd have no time for it, because you look at how, especially Raw, not so much SmackDown, but especially Raw has been booked in the last, I don't know, 2-3 months, or at least since WrestleMania, it's bookend by women. Becky, Asuka, Asuka's come back. She come back at some point in the last couple of months, whenever it was after Mania.
After Mania, yeah.
Whatever it was. And she has pretty much consistently main evented nearly every show since she's been back. And women are 9 times out of the 10 the main event. They're the opening segment. They're just crushing it all the time. And I'm not going to turn this into why I love women's wrestling. I have done so many shows on that. It's so boring at this point to listen to me talk about it. But if it wasn't for them,
I still love it.
I wouldn't care to watch. Yeah. I wouldn't even really care to watch wrestling, I don't think. Becky
and Asuka is one of my favorite rivalries. It's up there with Charlotte and Becky, in my opinion, because I just think that they're such a goddamn good performers.
Oscars. Like, that triple threat match at WrestleMania. No, what was the last show?
The Backlash.
No, Hell in a Cell.
Hell in a Cell.
Hell in a Cell. There we go.
Awesome.
See, they just all meant together, those shows. They had a phenomenal triple threat match, like hot crowd, everything like that. Just all worked, and I was just like, I was sitting down watching that. I'm like, we're in a cool spot right now where it's not being honed upon like women are doing this, women. It's just it's just happening. Like it's not like a big deal anymore when women main event, and I like that. I don't want any special emphasis around it. It's just because they're the most entertaining part of the show, and really for the again, not SmackDown, but the Raw women's division is real freaking good.
And I don't watch a ton of Impact, and I won't go down. We won't have to go down the women's Evolution wrestling thing because you've been down that before. I've been down that before. But like, I saw the table spot with Chelsea Green and Deonna Purrazzo, and like 5 years ago, we'd have been like, "Holy crap!" It was a cool spot today, but it's like women are it's just becoming. It doesn't
matter
like,
that they're women.
The norm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
5 years ago, it'd have been like, look at these women going through tables. It's just crazy. Now it's like, all right, that's a badass spot, no matter if it's men or women. Like, yeah. I love where we're at. And I like I said, I know Raw's been, but Becky, Asuka, Bianca, they all are killing it. The Rhea stuff was exciting until I don't know what happened.
Yeah, with the
Judgment Day. That was Vince, though. He was like, I'm not listening to Edge. You're out.
I don't listen. I know a lot of people were really not feeling the Judgment Day. They were like, I'm not feeling this. I don't get it. I personally liked it. And then the Edge stuff happened with Finn. I'm like, okay, this could be going into something cool. And then obviously the rug's been pulled out from under it because of Rhea being whatever's happened with Rhea, whether she's hurt or whatever. We don't really know. We might know by the time this airs, but at the time we're recording, it's just she's not medically cleared. Pulled her.
She was on Main Event, though, I thought, with...
Was she with them? I didn't think she was with them.
Oh, maybe she wasn't. You know what? I don't.
Why were they on Main Event wrestling the fucking Mysterios is beyond me. I'm like, why isn't that on Raw? So weird. It's just so.
We had to have the Vince McMahon segment, bro.
Yeah, what the hell? And he's just like, John Cena will be here next week. I'm like, bro, have you not watched the show for the last 3 weeks? They've already told us this.
If he shows up on NXT and he's like, hey, next week,
I think NXT's a tape show this week, to be fair.
Lucky us, right?
But yeah, it's just so. I don't know. That was just so odd, especially the SmackDown one. That was just like, I was like,
I knew he couldn't come out and apologize because then that admits guilt, and that definitely.
Also, there's a lawsuit going on, so I don't know if he's even allowed to mention it.
Right, but at least don't
be on television. Don't
be on television. But if you're gonna be on television, at least say like, I'm stepping down, Stephanie. Introduce Stephanie.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Do something to say, hey, I'm taking some time away till this is all cleared. I know everybody's heard the rumors. And if you want to do the whole, I'll be back better than everything, you go right ahead. But what you did was like say, hey, my dick is bigger than yours.
That's literally what he did. He was swinging his dick around.
Hey,
and like,
just don't show up.
It's just, and all the people cheering him and singing this, I'm like, it just makes wrestling fans look like dirt bags, which a lot of us are.
And if it was anybody else, talent, they wouldn't have been on TV. They would have been told to stay home,
and they wouldn't have been acknowledged. They would have had a statement, and then they wouldn't have talked about him again.
Where was the commentary saying he was completely unprofessional? Like, where were we at?
Yeah, that's a whole.
I know
that's
it's his
whole
show
thing as well. Yeah, and it is. And listen, okay, let's play hypotheticals here. Let's say this lawsuit doesn't work out for Vince, and he has to step down, and this is the end for Vince, and Stephanie takes over. What changes? Do you think Stephanie can really create that much change? Or is the problem not Vince? Is it the people surrounding Vince McMahon?
I think it's a combination of the two, because I think Vince McMahon is the end all be all, but he also surrounds himself with the yes men of the world. Like we saw the Bischoffs, your boy, the Silver Fox didn't last very long. He was the fall guy when he was trying to create new stuff. Paul Heyman tries to create new stuff, new stars, do this. And Vince says, nope, we're going back to this. And so he surrounds himself with the Johnny Aces and the Bruce Pritchards and say, yeah, Vince, sure, do whatever you want. I don't care. I'm just getting a paycheck. So, but I think if Stephanie, if they're not going to sell, ultimately, and this happened in American football.
Big if, by the way. Big if.
It happened with the Panthers owner, something very similar. Carolina Panthers had something similar. He had to sell. He ended up making $1 billion plus on the deal, whatever. So it wasn't really a slap on the wrist. But if Stephanie wants this would be her shot, and she just would have to say like, it's my show now. We're gonna put people in place to be successful and to continue to grow. But ultimately, at the end of the day, and I hate to be this guy, hypothetically speaking, like until Vince is gone, he's always going to have an ear.
Yeah, it's his daughter. So like,
yeah,
and
like
Stephanie is still, keyword, is still a McMahon. And she's learnt from who? Vince. So
yeah,
there is going to be Vince, but there is Vince elements that I really like that go, okay, this makes again, you talk about Vince now and it is a very like, thing to talk about just because of everything that he's ever done. But he changed wrestling. There wouldn't be what we know today without him. And I know a lot of people like you just no, I'm not making excuses for him because I think he's a piece of shit human. But he did create a lot of change for the business for the better. He also created a lot of change for the worse. Pros and cons to everything. But he created the formula for what we see as wrestling on television right now. Like he created that. If it wasn't for him in the 90s, or, I know a lot of people say, well, what Eric Bischoff did with WCW changed wrestling. Sure.
But he wouldn't have done that without Vince.
No, exactly. Eric Bischoff came into WCW when he took over as whatever his title was in 94 or 95.
Yeah, he was
counteracting Vince. He was getting in Hulk Hogan, and he was getting in Macho Man, and he was getting in all these people to go, well, they're not working over here. I'm going to slightly alter what I'm doing. And yes, okay, Nitro went live, and Nitro did all this. Yeah, sure. But Vince then had to adapt. It's a domino effect. Wrestling is a domino effect. Tony Khan has created wrestling because he wasn't getting what he liked as a wrestling fan, so he created his own. And it's just a domino effect of what Vince did, of what Eric did, of what Bill Watts did, of what, Vince McMahon Sr. did. It's all just a domino. Wrestling will always be like that. Stephanie will be a domino effect, or whoever takes over will be a domino effect of Vince. And, they always are counteracting and that's just the idea of wrestling. That'll never change. But what I'm saying is that Vince created a lot of elements, especially when it comes to television wrestling, of what we see now. Even in the AEW product, that you go, this is still familiar. This still feels like what I watched in the 90s, it's just different in other aspects, but it still feels the formula and the concept is still the same. You know what I mean? Like
even AEW is kind of tightening up like what they were doing. It was a breath of fresh air for like the first year because it was something different. And now they're even starting to kind of like fall into the patterns of storylines and rematches, and you're starting to. So yeah, Vince is gonna have his fingerprints all over wrestling for the rest of
at least
time.
For our wrestling generation of what they're watching. Like wrestling will be a thing that I don't think will ever go away. Pro wrestling will just always be around in some aspect. But in 40 years' time, people won't be talking about. They'll be like, Vince McMahon, who was he? He just did these things. Tony Khan, who's that? Like, it's just, it's like everything, sport, entertainment, everything. There's always someone that did something, and it just kind of falls over in the domino effect, and it just happens. So it is what it is. But it is a very interesting time. When I seen that tweet, it was Friday night for me. I know a lot of you guys in the States would have been waking up to that news. It was Friday night. I was with I think I was with my sister and my brother-in-law and just hanging out, and then opened up Twitter, and I'm like, holy shit balls. This is really a thing. Regardless of, again, what it actually means right now, it's still in title. She's the chairwoman and CEO of WWE. And we have both never lived in a time where Vince hasn't been in charge of WWE.
And for us in the States, they're dropping this news late. Because you said Friday night for you. That is late Thursday night, Friday morning. It's just weird times. It's not like your normal, like I think we went off the air. JPJ and I did the All Elite sidecast. We were watching All Elite Wrestling. We went to bed. We woke up, and then Thursday morning, we're like, what the hell? Like, when did that happen? And they dropped it like at 11:30 Wednesday night. And you're just like, they're trying their best to not make this as big national news, but it made ESPN's homepage. And if you're making ESPN's homepage in wrestling, it's a big deal.
Yeah, it's insane that this is. I've had people talk to me that don't care for wrestling, but they know who everyone knows who Vince McMahon is. And they're like, oh, you watch wrestling, like you must be going like, and it's just like, well, I'm trying to avoid talking about it, to be completely, in some aspects of it, I'm trying to avoid talking about because it's just so like icky, and I'm like, ugh.
It's icky, and there's still so much that we don't know.
We never will.
And there's the we might never find out, or we will. It's just there's not enough like floodgate. The floodgates are going to open in some capacity, and I'm like, yeah, no, it's crazy. That's my answer. Like when people ask me, I go, yeah, crazy stuff.
Yep, that's what I say as well.
Yeah.
Me and my sister loves wrestling. My brother-in-law loves wrestling, and we kind of were like when that tweet came out with because we obviously were talking about like what happened with Vince because it was a couple of days before, and then Stephanie obviously announced that she was taking over in the interim role anyway. We were talking about that, and we were like, what a crazy time that SmackDown was airing the next morning for me that night for everyone in the States, and it's just kind of like, wow, we're about to watch an episode of SmackDown that's never happened before. There's never been a time where Vince McMahon hasn't been the chairman of WWE while SmackDown or even Raw has aired. And it's like, that's pretty insane. When you look back on it and you go, oh, they're the episodes that Stephanie was technically the chairwoman of WWE for, even in the interim role. And it means nothing because television-wise, Vince is still running the ship. But remember, the thing with Steph is that she was the head of creative of SmackDown at least in like 04, 05, 03, sometime around that. So it's not like Stephanie hasn't had experience running creative. She's what was her role? The chief brand officer of WWE or something. That was her her title, which basically means just going and being like, this is what WWE is, and she goes around and strokes WWE's ego really. But it's not like she doesn't have experience with board leaders and business executives. I was sure that as the chief brand officer, you would probably work on a lot of sponsorships and talking to companies about like what WWE is and what WWE does, because I would imagine, well, I wouldn't even imagine, I would know that wrestling is probably a fairly hard product to sell to sponsors because it's not traditional entertainment. It's not just being like, it's Friends, you know what I mean? Like it's just a sitcom.
It's still got that stigma of like that it's fake. And I just saw it's been making its rounds on my TikTok and socials. Like Chris Van Vliet did an interview with some guy. I don't know his name off the top of my head. And the guy's like, yo, so you like that wrestling stuff, huh? And he's like, yeah. And he goes, it's fake, right? And Chris is like, yeah, but so are movies. And he's like, no, but like at least in movies it looks real. And these guys are, so there's always that stigma where it's like, and the WWE's made great strides in the sponsorship game. It used to be 5 Hour Energy and Slim Jim. And now they've moved up a little, but they're not with the like the sports where it's like the beer and the car insurance. And I think it's because it's just the stigma of it's fake. It's just, but yeah, of course it's they're not actually out there beating ass. The moves are real. This shit hurts. Trust me. I talked to plenty of independent wrestlers that'll tell you, take a bump and then come talk to me. But yeah, I don't know if they get there. I know Stephanie. I have faith in Stephanie. I really do.
I think as well. I know everyone's probably going to be like, Pluggo and Josh are naive. They don't.
Yeah, we don't know. You guys don't know.
I like
Vince will still be there. Like, yeah, but at some point he's not going to be
there,
and he's not. He's there physically. He's making some. I really would love to have been a fly on the wall for that meeting where Vince goes, "I'm going to walk out here on Friday after all this, and this is what I'm going to do." I wonder if he told anybody, because there was a
Friday would have had to, because he would have they announced it, but maybe not.
But I meant like what he was going to say.
Oh yeah, true. Probably
because
it probably wasn't in the script,
right? Because there was Sean Ross Sapp had reported that there was a bunch of people that were just furious with that and like thought it was just completely tone deaf backstage. It was. And then I noticed like it felt like there was some filler throughout the night, because I stuck around and watched a little. I watched
all of SmackDown last week.
Yeah, and I haven't done that in a while.
Oh God, I never watched SmackDown. That's a bad show.
And it felt like there was some filler, and I was like, maybe he was supposed to go longer and say some other things.
It was insane the way he said it, and I was like, the fuck is going on with this man? Like he's gone insane. And then the Raw one was even, I was like, what the shit?
But I mean, if Stephanie wants to be successful in the interim role or even become the permanent successor, I think between her, Triple H, and Nick Khan, I think there needs to be, if Vince is going to be around, it needs to be like, we have to take this in another direction. Maybe not completely overhaul. I don't think it needs a complete overhaul, but like,
the culture needs to change for
we're going to start changing the culture, because this, whether whoever takes over, this is going to hang a cloud. This is another one of those scandals where it's like when the steroid trials happened.
Yeah.
They had to change that culture and come up with the wellness policy and do the drug-free campaigns. And you got to change your culture. You can't, it's like in sports, when you fire a head coach who's offensive minded, you go defensive minded with the next coach just to change the culture. So I'm hoping that they do that, or if they sell Disney to Disney or whoever,
Disney takes that shit over. That's not happening in that company anymore. I can tell you that. Disney
exactly.
Disney,
but they'll keep the Stephanies and the Nick Khans of the world. But I think they would probably say, look, that stuff with Vince is icky. I know that he is the WWE, but we need to be overseeing the shots here.
Yeah, and I think it does. You know what? I'm actually glad that, I hope for whatever reason, if this doesn't, work in Vince's favor, I hope Stephanie does take over, because I think a woman leading $1 million company in this culture is probably the best thing that can happen, because in a Stephanie McMahon world, that shit would not fly.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else to really add to that other than, like, I don't think that would happen and we need more women at the top of things, by the way, because there's not enough. No matter what anyone says, especially pro wrestling is still a very male driven world, especially in the business side of wrestling, like the actual, not maybe on a talent, but even on a talent front, but on a business side of things, like outside of Stephanie McMahon, can you name 3 female executives in the WWE? Exactly.
You can't. And that is a problem. And I think like I said, we've said, and I think we need that female voice in there. It would be the right look. It'd be the right move. I mean, and it wouldn't even just be a look to look. She's, like you said, immensely qualified. She knows the ins and outs of the business. She could run it, the day-to-day operations. If she wanted to put somebody in the creative role, I think you could do big things. I really do. If she wants to oversee creative, I think she'd be a little bit more open to discussions, like the Matt Hardy thing. She would know exactly what Matt Hardy
Triple H does too. Because remember, Stephanie, okay, yes, Stephanie is still a McMahon, but a lot of the aspects of the business she learnt first from being a talent.
Right.
She was probably working. She wasn't in the business world when she was first on TV, though. It kind of just, naturally escalated from there. But she was a talent first. Triple H, who would be in her ear, was a talent first, and then became, a business kind of thing. Vince learnt from his father, and he was overseeing the company. Vince just wanted to be that. You know what I mean? Like, sure, Stephanie had aspects to be exactly like her father. Even Shane, I'm sure, did as well. But they were talents first. And that's something, I always think that's something to remember with Steph and with Triple H, is that they know what it's like, especially Triple H know what it's like to build from the ground up. It's not,
and
like
not just talents, like good talent.
Yeah.
Like Triple H is an all-timer. Stephanie's on-screen role was always good work, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So like they know what it means to get over. They know how to work a crowd. They know, so they could teach.
Stephanie is a master of a promo, by the way.
Exactly. I love Stephanie. I've always loved Stephanie.
I always have as well.
I love the Authority. Bring that back. Like
I liked it as well, because we actually had to like get mad and be like, fuck these guys, and like actually build something from
How
nothing.
do you feel about the general manager spot? Are you a fan?
Yes, because without Authority, the show makes no sense. Who's running this? Who's like, are we just like listening to some aura above that's just like making like the general manager role? Yes, it's been done to death, and I don't think you need to necessarily have a heel in that role all the time, although sometimes it's fun. But you have to have some, like some people are like, what is Adam? Adam Pearce is the on-screen boss. Okay, what he says goes. Like, just have someone to say, this is why this match, or like, I'll make that official, as he likes to say. Like,
I hate when he says, I talked to management and they decided. Why did they decide this match tonight?
Yeah, like, just
why did they decide that both Drew and Sheamus are in the Money in the Bank after both losing last week? Like,
yeah, it's weird.
What? Adam, tell me.
You have to have some kind of authority on the show. Like, I love AEW, and I think there's a lot of things that people love about AEW, and that's great. But like, I understand we're like, oh, Tony, but you have to assume. I don't want to assume ever in anything that I'm watching. Just, I'm stupid. tell me like I'm stupid. That's what I want to. I would rather be told 3 times that someone's in charge than told 0 times that nobody's in charge. And you just have to assume that Tony Khan is making all the... Yeah, but okay, but can't someone just... Sometimes they'll allude to it, like on commentary. I've noticed they'll be like, Tony Khan signed this match. I'm like, okay, cool. But we just need to just connect the dots, because WWE's worst thing is that they do is they don't connect. They like this.
Right.
They're like,
I love to know why.
Yeah, just tell me why.
Why did Tony Khan decide that? What, and especially on AEW side of things, with all the after match beatdown angles that they like to do, like, okay, who's gonna stop this?
Yeah, and like sometimes I've noticed with AEW, and this isn't like a shit on it. We love AEW. AEW has way more pros than it does cons.
This is like our favorite night of the week is Wednesday night for sure.
It's just like sometimes they'll just be like, it'll be like, I don't know. I'm just gonna hypothetically say it's like Tony Storm and Britt Baker just had a match they did last week, and then Tony Storm won, and then all of a sudden there's just a graphic saying, "Oh, at Forbidden Door, Tony Storm's going to fight Thunder Rosa." Just calm down. Let's just let it breathe for a second and tell us, okay, thanks to Tony Storm doing this, and Tony Storm has now challenged Thunder Rosa. Just connect the dots a little bit instead of just being like, okay, cool, it's happening. Like, there's just no... WWE do the opposite in the sense of like, they tell us too many reasons why sometimes something is happening. You're like, wait, what is going on? Like, you've told us 600 times, and I'm so... Just meet in the middle here, people. Like, sometimes we do have to be explained some stuff, and sometimes we don't. I understand that. It's just wrestling. I know I'm contradicting what I'm saying. But, like, wrestling, that makes wrestling. It is kind of a stupid thing. Like, wrestling is really stupid. But sometimes when I'm watching wrestling, I am stupid, and I need to just be told some things before just assuming.
It could be my old school ways. Like, I grew up on the Eric Bischoff WCW. Like, I was a WCW guy early on because it was on an hour earlier and it was an hour longer. So I thought, oh, more wrestling is better. So I focused. I didn't get into WWE until a little later in the Attitude Era. But, you know, we always had Vince and Stone Cold, one of the greatest stories ever told. And that was an authority figure. And then you had the Vicky Guerreros of the world. I even thought that was a lot of fun. Teddy Long. I mean, so I love the idea, the authority we just talked about. I enjoyed that angle a lot. I just love the idea of like the inmates don't run the asylum. There at least is somebody in place and they're doing it with Adam Pearce, and they were doing it with Sonya for a hot minute. But like, I just say, all right, Adam Pearce, you're in charge, bro. You're already there. You're toying with it. Just make him the boss. Tony Khan, if you want to be an on-screen person, I don't know if it's the right idea or not, but like, give me the whys. I want to know why you booked the Owen tournament the way you booked it. I want to know why you decided to book the Forbidden Door match with Tony Storm and Thunder Rosa just because she beat Britt.
Cool.
Okay.
I don't like. I know what they're trying to do with like rankings and stuff, and we won't rant on this for too long. But like, when I watch wrestling, I don't want to watch sport. It's not sport. It's entertainment. I have no interest in watching. Like, oh, this person won this many matches, so now they're number one. It's like, sometimes I just want, like, this match is for this shot. Because it's wrestling. It's a scripted well, I know that term is loosely...
It's real.
Like, it's that term is loosely in AEW, but there's still a formula that they're trying to get from point A to point B. You just figure out the in-betweens. But, like, I don't know. Wrestling is not a sport. And sometimes I don't want it to be treated as such. It's sports elements, but I don't want it to be treated as a sport. And that was my biggest thing with AEW, is like, it took me so long to get involved with AEW, is because I'm like, if I want to watch sport, I'll go and watch sport. This isn't sport. And I don't know, a lot of people would disagree with me on that, but I mean, I got attacked on Twitter for saying stuff about Britt Baker, and someone wrote, like, this was weeks ago, someone wrote, I think it was like, Athena wrestles better than Britt Baker, and I just quote tweeted and wrote, most do. And then I had like a whole thread of like, Britt is over because of her character, because of her promo work, because she actually has something that we can invest in. Like, Britt's a fine wrestler. I'm not saying she's bad at all. She's not. But there's many people that are way better wrestlers than Britt Baker, but they're not as interesting, so I have no interest in them. I don't care for... Great wrestling is great wrestling, and sure, I like that. But like, if you don't have someone that I can actually give two shits about, I'm not going to care about you. Personally, that's how I watch wrestling.
if we were only basing it strictly on wrestling ability, Drew Gulak would be the Universal Champion,
exactly.
Right? Like, and yeah, Britt Baker, but she's over wrestling. I look at it as a sport overall. I consider them athletes, and I like some of the sports element. Like, if you're going to do the rankings, then you need to stick to it. But there are ways in the sports entertainment world to get around it. They figured that out, but then it kind of discredit. I wish they wouldn't have started with the rankings. But anyway, we're off the topic on that. But yeah, wrestling for me, like, yeah, Athena is a fantastic wrestler, but is she connected with the audience the way Britt Baker has? Not yet. Not AEW. People shit on Charlotte Flair. She's got the total package. She may not be the most technically sound wrestler in the world, but if we're talking
give two shits about her, I actually care.
But yeah, but she gives you, and every wrestler you talk to in the business says, I don't care if you're booing or cheering as long as you have some type of reaction to me, because the worst thing you could have is you go out there and it's crickets. And that's why I said, like, Serena Deeb is one of the best wrestlers in the world, male or female. She's right, but she's ultimately boring. She's not getting the reaction.
Or like, what is, like, please someone explain to me what her character. She's just woman.
Yeah, she was the professor thing where
but
she
what
was
is
coming
that?
out.
When you just have a nickname, like, what is that? Like, what does that actually mean? Like, okay, someone like, I don't know, someone really just Sasha Banks. She's hot topic at the moment. But you look at her and you know exactly what the boss is. You get that moniker. You like, I understand what you are, what you're portraying. You are all of the things that you say. When you look at someone like Serena, and this is I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but what does that mean? To me,
I think part of the problem with AEW is they don't give their women enough time to explain.
Well, that's a whole nother thing. But like, sometimes AEW rely on the fact that you should have watched this person 10 years ago in this indie promotion. I don't watch indie wrestling. I've made it very clear that I don't watch. I know of certain people and I've seen certain things about certain people, sure, but they're not explaining, when they're introducing new characters, they're just relying on that. And I hate to be this person, but you're not going to grow too much if you don't.
Yeah.
You have to sometimes just go, okay, we understand, we acknowledge what they did before, and it's on you if you didn't see that, sure. But like Danhausen, okay? Danhausen came in, and I love Danhausen, and a lot of people know who Danhausen are. But for someone that's never watched anything of that, they're just expecting you to understand what this is a very interesting character to understand. It's like they don't explain what the hell is going, like, why is he, like, what is
Danhausen is such an extreme example too, because he's hard to explain to diehard wrestling fans.
Sure, okay,
and then
probably not the best example.
But what I mean by that is then they give him a match, and I'm telling JPJ that night, I'm like, Danhausen can actually wrestle if you've caught his indie stuff, and he's like, I've never seen anything, and then he gets squashed in 2 seconds, and you're like, what? Okay, how do I get this back? Wrestling, and this is where, like, the internet trolls or the internet community have your opinion, that's fine, but like the good examples like Jade Cargill. Like, you look at Jade Cargill and you see absolute star. I know you're biting your lip because you see more than star. But she's green in the ring, and everybody's like, well, she's not blah 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 in the ring. She's not Daniel Bryan in the ring. A lot of people aren't.
No,
but she has it. She's over with the crowd. She's getting a reaction. She looks like
look at someone like that.
It's wrestling.
But she's been explained to us of what Jade is. Sometimes you just have to say she is just that bitch. She really is. Because you look at Jade and she matches what she's telling us.
Yep.
Okay, Brian is on another level. Sure, he's a great wrestler, but he's also honed in on a character. He's made that, and we know what Bryan Danielson is. We know what Jon Moxley is. We know what Seth Rollins is. We know what Roman Reigns is. But sometimes WWE over-explain to the point where you're like, I fucking get it. AEW don't explain enough. Where you're like, what is this? They need to,
I think they made a misstep in their beginning when they said, and I love AEW. I'm not shitting on them. But when they said it's gonna be the wrestling's wrestler promotion, the sports entertainment stuff, you can do wrestling where it's all wrestling, that's it, but it's not, you need an entertainment factor, especially if you're on TV. So when they started going the entertainment routes with the Jade Cargills of the world, sure, she's not the wrestler that the internet expects, but also when you say you're going to be sports based, you're a sports fan base, and a sports fan of mine, like in baseball, you can either hit a baseball or you can't hit a baseball. nobody's rooting for the guy that can't hit the baseball. But in wrestling, there's so many layers of like, that wrestler's like Drew Gulak is a fantastic wrestler, but he just loses all the time. So there's all these gray areas. There's all these shades of gray with it. Like, yeah, maybe Jade isn't the greatest wrestler in the world, but she's got everything else. And the other stuff will come.
It's like, I watch a lot of football in Australian rules football, but like
Right.
if
Go
you
Crows, baby.
Yeah. It's if you can't kick a footy, you aren't playing in the AFL.
Right.
So like, if you're going to treat that as a sport, that means that nobody that can't do a, I don't know, headlock takeover properly should be wrestling in that aspect. Do you know what I mean? Like, where is the line here? You got to let people grow, but also like, you want to take it. It's just weird. It's not sport. It's not true sport. And everyone can argue with me. Yes, there's sports elements.
In true sports, in any sport, if you've got an athlete that has even one, maybe two of the tools, you throw them out there to see if they can develop the rest, right? You're going to try it. How many top draft picks fail because you think they've got the potential?
Yeah.
So, yeah, but again, you can't treat wrestling strictly on the sports line because there's so much other nuance to it. Because again, your American rules football team isn't in the middle of a match cutting a promo to try to get the crowd over. You know what I mean?
They don't have to have that aspect. Where wrestling is its own bubble. You have to treat wrestling. It's not sport. It's not entertainment. It's just wrestling. It's its own genre. And you have to just treat it as such. But, it's a whole thing that I think we could probably spend 3 hours on actually like breaking this down. I genuinely do. I think you could break this down into little bits of sections and really analyze this for what it is. But we're not going to sit here for 3 hours and do that because we're going to wrap things up. But, man, I told you before this show, I told Pluggo, I said, me and JPJ don't really have too much of a plan. We just have a few little tidbits and then we just go with it. And you're like, all right, cool. Like, and we've already been talking for, an hour and 5 minutes. So like,
that's
it's just like,
boom. That's what we do on Thursdays, man. And that's what I do with JPJ on our show, Between Two Beards, shameless plug. Like, we have a kind of a baseline of like what we want to do, but like usually we just go off topic. And I know for a fact, Josh, I could talk to you 3 hours about the intricacies of paint drying because I just find you that entertaining. So I really do. This is bucket list shit for me, man. I always love working with you and get an opportunity. You were one of the first people that when I got doing this, I was like, I want to work with that guy. Whatever I got to do to get in his good grace.
Nice of you to say. Yeah, well, I'm always down to chat. I'm Chatty Cathy, so I can talk for hours and hours and hours. But unfortunately, we have lives to live. Unfortunately,
yes, we do.
Have to go and do other things. But Pluggo's. Listen, I don't usually ask this because JPJ's here every week. But plug away of anything that you need to plug because this is your 30 seconds minute to shine.
Is it my 30? Okay. Well, I am Pluggo. You can find me on Twitter at Pluggo_. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all under the Pluggo moniker. With, like I've been saying throughout the show, JPJ, the usual guy in this seat, and I do a show on Thursday nights called Between Two Beards. It's over on the Love Wrestling Network, 8:00. He's on vacation this week, so I got a special guest. It's going to be announced. I'm going to do it. It's Ella J. She's taking over. Since this won't drop until Thursday, your time, Thursday morning, everybody will know. Come check it out. I had to pull out some big guns to fill his shoes.
I love Ella.
I love Ella too. I'm glad she was available. I was like, hey, listen, last minute JPJ's on vacation. What are you doing? She's like, I'm in. I'm like, all right.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, you can find us on Between Two Beards on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, all that fun stuff. We're doing all sorts of things. Wednesday nights, we do the sidecast as well with Astrid. Yeah, I'm just all over. You just catch me on socials, man. I'm all over the place. People, popping in and out. I don't know. That's what I do. I don't really have anything else. I just plug away, man.
Yeah, that's what Pluggo does. Of course, you can find me at any of the links on the screen. I've had Pluggo's Twitter on the screen as well, so you can see that. Links are all in the description. Next week is going to be a little bit different because of just scheduling and stuff like that. JPJ and I are actually going to be doing our Money in the Bank simulation live as the same time as NXT. So you're going to be seeing the Power Hour episode will be a little bit different. We're going to do our usual 2K22 simulation in that slot next week. So then, because I'm away for the weekend and I can't.
What am I going to do on Friday night now during SmackDown?
So instead of NXT next week, you can watch the Money in the Bank sim, right. And you know how that game can simulate things with ladder matches. So get your snacks ready because we could be there for a little while. But that doesn't matter. Me and JPJ will sit there and make it fun. We love doing those sims. So that's what you're going to get for your Power Hour dosage next week because I'm off to the city for the weekend. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm not home. So I can't do any of this bullshit. I can't do any content stuff. So I'll be away. I'm going to the footy on the Saturday night. I'm spending some time with my cousin who I haven't seen in a little while. She's getting away from her kids for a day. So she's...
See the Crows?
Yeah, we're going to see the Crows. We're probably going to get our asses whooped. That's all right. We'll probably just get drunk. So it's fine. Doesn't matter. We're going to have some drinks. We're going to have a good time. Like I said, my cousin's going to be away from her children, so she's going to be living up for the day. She's like, no kids. She's got two young kids. As a father,
I know.
Her kids are 2 and 4. So she's in the thick of it. She's like, is it time? Are we nearly there? I'm like, it's less than 2 weeks. It's less than 2 weeks. She's like, I cannot wait to leave these kids with their dad and just fuck off for the weekend. She's ready. She's like, we're going to the bar. We're going to the freaking thing. We're going to the footy. We're going to have a good time. So that's what I'm doing next weekend. So that's why you're getting the Money in the Bank sim a little bit early. But we're still doing it, me and JPJ. Again, I actually haven't even talked to JPJ about this, but this is our usual record time anyway, so I know he'll be. But hey, he didn't tell me that he wasn't going to be here until like a day ago. So
yes. Tell him you spring it on a Tuesday right before you guys set the record. Oh, by the way, we're doing this.
Yeah, we're doing this. So get ready.
Suck it.
Suck on those eggs. But we do hope JPJ is having. I know JPJ will probably watch this. So JPJ, I hope you are enjoying your vacation, but also get wrecked because
get wrecked, fool.
Because we're like that. But anyway,
and if you're not ready for Tuesday, I'll just sit down.
Exactly. I'll just have Pluggo here. Maybe this can still be called the J&J Power Hour without you, JPJ. Just.
Yeah. My actual shoot name is John.
So and my middle name is John. So look at that.
Done.
So just calm it down. Hold your saddles there, JPJ. You might want to get back to us.
Enjoy your vacation, bro.
Yeah, sure, vacation. Likely story. But until next week, folks, we're out of here. We'll see you on the next one. Peace out.